I'm Jack, a 23-year-old guy who always had a rocky relationship with my family, especially with my younger sister Emily, who's 18. I believe she's the devil incarnate, but my parents never saw her for who she truly is. That changed recently, though. For some context, my parents had always adored Emily. She was their miracle baby after my mother had a miscarriage. Emily was showered with affection and attention, becoming the center of our family's universe. I loved her too when we were kids, but over time, I realized she had an incredible talent for manipulation. She could twist any story in her favor and was a master at playing the victim. One memorable incident happened on my birthday. I received an antique pocket watch from our grandparents, a family heirloom that made me incredibly happy. Emily, clearly jealous, kept asking to share it. I said no, since it was my birthday gift. That night, knowing I was terrified of spiders, Emily placed a spider in my pillowcase. I woke up feeling it crawl over me and started screaming. My parents rushed in concerned while Emily acted all surprised and caring. Later, she admitted with a creepy grin that she did it to teach me a lesson. Another time, when I had a crush on a classmate named Mike and finally had the courage to invite him over, Emily deliberately spilled juice all over my dress as soon as he arrived. She laughed while I had to change, hiding my embarrassment. She then proceeded to tell Mike embarrassing childhood stories, making me feel utterly humiliated. She didn't leave us alone during the entire movie and even told Mike he could do better than me. He left in a hurry, clearly uncomfortable. Over the years, I told my parents about her antics, but they dismissed them as youthful naivety. They never believed me and thought I was the troublemaker, so I stopped speaking up. Emily remained their favorite while I felt like an outsider. I focused on my studies, got into a good college, and moved out. Whenever I returned home during breaks, Emily made it clear she despised me being there. She would ignore me, mess with my stuff, and generally make my visits uncomfortable. When Emily graduated from high school, she didn't have the grades for college and stayed at home, attending community college. Meanwhile, I started working at a multinational corporation in San Francisco and enjoyed my job. I stayed in touch with my parents but rarely visited home. I had no contact with Emily. Recently, my father had a near-fatal heart attack but survived by a miracle. My mother called to inform me, and I immediately flew back home. The doctors prescribed numerous medications and advised him to start working out. My father expressed a desire to spend more time with us, so I stayed home for a few days, working remotely. Emily was clearly agitated by my presence, but I tried to avoid conflicts. One morning during breakfast, my father suggested a family vacation. I agreed for his sake, though Emily wasn't thrilled. My father made all the arrangements. However, at the airport, I found out my flight ticket had been canceled. It turned out my name was the only one canceled among the 4 tickets. Emily had a sly smile, and I realized she had canceled my ticket from my father's computer. I confronted her, but my parents dismissed my claims, saying she would never do something like that. They blamed it on an airline mistake. Frustrated, I couldn't do anything since my ticket was already canceled. There were no other flights that day, and I didn't want to travel alone. My parents insisted they continue with their vacation without me, and I reluctantly agreed. Back in San Francisco, I tried to put the incident behind me and enjoyed my leave. I reconnected with old friends and spent my days reading, turning my break into a solo staycation. My parents occasionally video called me, showing how much they were enjoying the trip without me. It hurt to see them happy without me, but I tried to move on. A few days into their vacation, I woke up to several missed calls from my mother. Worried, I called back. She was distressed, explaining that my father's medications had been disappearing. They searched everywhere but couldn't find them. My mother went to Emily's room to borrow sunscreen and found all the missing medications hidden there. My parents finally realized Emily's true nature. They were shocked and didn't know what to do. I advised them to confront her after returning home. However, things escalated quickly. Emily had a tantrum, threw objects, and insulted my parents when they asked her about the medications. The hotel called the authorities, and she was taken into custody for her behavior. After her release, my parents tried to reschedule their flight, but found their passports and wallets missing. Emily had hidden or discarded them, stranding them in a foreign country. They finally realized the extent of her manipulation and begged me for help. I sent them money through Western Union and advised them to find their passports before returning home. When they returned, they confronted Emily, and told her to move out. This led to another screaming match. Emily threatened to accuse them of neglect and mistreatment if they made her leave. This scared my parents, as they were respected doctors in the community. Emily's fabricated allegations could ruin their reputation. Emily continued making life difficult for my parents, hiding their car keys and breaking dishes. My mother called me in tears, and I advised them to consult a lawyer. They decided to pursue legal eviction. Emily was arrested again for assaulting my father with a knife. My parents bailed her out and handed her a formal eviction notice. The court ruled in their favor, and Emily had to leave. My parents finally breathed a sigh of relief. They came to San Francisco to stay with me for a while, seeking solace and a fresh start. They admitted their mistakes and begged for my forgiveness. We spent time together, exploring the city and rebuilding our relationship. We discussed Emily's behavior, realizing it might indicate deeper issues. We planned to encourage her to seek help voluntarily. My parents reached out to her, meeting in public to avoid confrontations. They hoped she would understand their perspective and recognize their love and concern. As the days passed, we continued to rebuild our bond. My parents felt guilty for their favoritism, and I struggled to trust them again. But we were determined to work through it together. They planned to consult a mental health professional for Emily, hoping she would accept help. I realized that despite everything, we were still a family. We had been through a lot, but we were finally facing the issues that had plagued us for years. It was a long road ahead, but we were ready to take it one step at a time, together. My promotion at work was a significant milestone. After years of hard work, I had finally climbed the corporate ladder. The new position came with a substantial salary increase and a sleek company car. It was a dream come true, a testament to my dedication and perseverance. To celebrate, I decided to treat myself to a solo dinner at one of my favorite upscale restaurants. I ordered my favorite dishes, savoring each bite, and for a moment, I felt genuinely happy. It was a brief respite from the turmoil that had become my life. However, my joy was short-lived. I made the mistake of posting about my promotion and celebration on social media. Within hours, my mother contacted me. Her message was filled with warmth and congratulations, but there was an underlying tone of urgency. She wanted me to visit, to discuss something important. Given our estranged relationship and the recent betrayal, I was skeptical. I ignored her message, hoping she would take the hint. But she didn't. She called me repeatedly, leaving voicemails that ranged from pleading to accusatory. Eventually, she showed up at my office, causing a scene. To avoid further embarrassment, I agreed to visit them. When I arrived at my parents' new house, I was struck by its size and luxury. It was a far cry from the modest home I grew up in. Clearly, they had used the settlement money from my divorce to upgrade their living situation. The house felt cold and unwelcoming, much like my parents' demeanor towards me over the years. Inside, my parents were waiting for me. Jake and Sarah were conspicuously absent, which made the atmosphere even more tense. After an awkward silence, my father finally spoke. He explained that Jake had lost his job, and the settlement money wasn't enough to cover their expenses. They had seen my post about the promotion and hoped I could help financially. I was taken aback by their audacity. After everything they had put me through, they had the nerve to ask for my help. I stood there speechless, trying to process the situation. Finally, I told them I couldn't help and walked out. As I reached the door, Jake and Sarah appeared, pleading with me to reconsider. I told them to leave me alone and walked out into the rain. For the next few days, I was tormented by guilt and anger. My mother bombarded me with messages, trying to guilt-trip me into helping. I began to doubt my decision, wondering if I was being too harsh. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized they didn't deserve my help. They had abandoned me when I needed them the most, siding with Sarah and Jake during the divorce. They had never treated me with the same love and respect they showed Jake. Determined to move on, I focused on my work. My promotion had come with increased responsibilities, and I threw myself into my new role. The work was challenging but rewarding, and it helped distract me from the pain. I began to rebuild my life, one step at a time. I started going to the gym regularly, taking up new hobbies, and reconnecting with old friends. Slowly but surely, I began to find joy in life again. However, my family wasn't ready to let me go. Jake showed up at my house one evening, demanding to talk. He tried to guilt me into helping, saying he felt sorry for my childhood treatment, but couldn't help being better than me. His words stung, but I stood my ground. I told him to find a job and stop wasting his time. Furious, he threatened to make me regret my decision. I wasn't scared. I knew Jake was all talk and no action. 3 days later, Sarah called. Her tone was soft and pleading. She claimed they were struggling and asked me to be the bigger person. She reminded me of my parents' sacrifices and her efforts as a wife. Her words were manipulative, designed to make me feel guilty. But I saw through her lies. I reminded her of their betrayal and refused to help. Enraged, she threatened to demand higher alimony. I wasn't intimidated. This time, I was ready to fight back. I gathered evidence and testimonies from friends and relatives to prove my family's mistreatment. My lawyer was confident we had a strong case. The court proceedings were intense, but I remained focused. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. The alimony payments were discontinued, and I was finally free from Sarah's financial hold. Returning home after the court ruling, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. But my family wasn't done with their attempts to manipulate me. They showed up at my house, blocking my way in. My father lectured me about responsibility and betrayal. I remained silent, refusing to engage. Jake tried to hit me, but my father pulled him back. I told them to leave or I'd call the police. They finally left, and I haven't heard from them since. Now, I'm focused on rebuilding my life. The ordeal has made me stronger, and I'm ready to move on. I've started therapy to help process my emotions and heal from the trauma. My therapist has been instrumental in helping me understand that I deserve to be happy and that it's okay to cut toxic people out of my life. I've also reconnected with old friends who have been incredibly supportive. They remind me of the person I was before all this happened, and they help me see the light at the end of the tunnel. I've started dating again, taking things slow and learning to trust again. It hasn't been easy, but I'm determined to find love and happiness. Work has become a refuge for me. The promotion has given me a new sense of purpose and direction. I've taken on new projects and responsibilities, and my colleagues have noticed the change in me. They say I seem more confident and focused. It's a compliment I cherish because it shows that I'm moving forward. I've also taken up new hobbies to fill my time and bring joy into my life. I started hiking, exploring the beautiful trails around my town. The fresh air and exercise have done wonders for my mental health. I've also taken up painting, something I used to love as a child. It's a way for me to express my emotions and create something beautiful out of my pain. Looking back, I can see how far I've come. The pain of betrayal and the bitterness of my family's rejection no longer hold the same power over me. I've learned to forgive myself for the mistakes I made and to let go of the anger I felt towards my family. It's a process, but each day I feel a little lighter. I've also started volunteering at a local shelter. Helping others gives me a sense of purpose and fulfillment. It's a reminder that despite everything I've been through, I still have a lot to give. The gratitude and smiles of those I help fill my heart with joy and remind me of the goodness in the world. As I sit here reflecting on my journey, I realize that I've found a strength I never knew I had. The love and support of my friends, the guidance of my therapist, and my own determination have brought me to a place of peace. I'm no longer the broken man I once was. I've rebuilt my life from the ground up, and I'm proud of the person I've become. The future looks bright, and I'm excited for what lies ahead. I know there will be challenges, but I'm ready to face them head on. I've learned that I'm resilient, capable, and deserving of happiness. And that's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. The trip was a wake-up call for my parents. After Emily's arrest and the loss of their passports and wallets, they realized they were dealing with more than just a spoiled child. They understood the danger Emily posed, not only to themselves, but potentially to others. Their desperation led them to reach out to me, despite the strained relationship. I could hear the fear and regret in their voices as they explained their predicament. It was a humbling moment for them and a validating one for me. I had warned them for years about Emily, but it took this extreme situation for them to see the truth. The process of helping my parents from afar was challenging. Coordinating with Western Union to send them money, ensuring they could find a place to stay until their documents were recovered, and constantly reassuring them over the phone was draining. I wanted to fly out and help them, but my responsibilities at work and the volatile nature of the situation made it impossible. My parents managed to find their passports hidden in the hotel room, just as I had suspected. With their documents in hand, they could finally book a flight back home. Upon their return, the atmosphere was tense. Emily, realizing the jig was up, became even more belligerent. My parents, now fully aware of her manipulative tactics, stood their ground. The confrontation was explosive, with Emily hurling accusations and threats. She threatened to ruin their reputation, claiming she would tell everyone they had neglected and mistreated her. This was a devastating blow to my parents, who were respected figures in their community. The fear of these false allegations weighed heavily on them. Emily's escalating behavior left my parents with no choice but to involve the authorities again. Her arrest for assaulting my father was a turning point. They realized they needed to take legal action to protect themselves. Consulting with a lawyer, they began the eviction process. It was a heart-wrenching decision for them, but necessary. The court ruling in their favor provided a sense of relief, knowing they could reclaim their home and peace of mind. With Emily's eviction, my parents sought refuge with me in San Francisco. It was a time for healing and reconciliation. They admitted their mistakes, expressing deep regret for not believing me sooner. Our conversations were raw and emotional, but necessary for us to move forward. We spent time exploring the city, enjoying simple pleasures like dining out and walking through parks. These moments helped rebuild our bond, creating new memories to overshadow the painful past. We discussed Emily's future, understanding that her behavior might stem from deeper psychological issues. Encouraging her to seek help was our priority. We knew we couldn't force her, but we hoped that with time, she might realize the need for professional assistance. My parents planned to approach her gently, expressing their love and concern. They hoped to meet her in public, minimizing the chances of another outburst. Our goal was to help her understand the impact of her actions and to guide her towards a path of healing. As the days turned into weeks, the wounds began to heal. My parents and I continued to strengthen our relationship, building trust and understanding. They stayed with me for a month, enjoying the calm and support they desperately needed. We shared stories, cooked meals together, and even took a short trip to the countryside. It was a time of reflection and growth for all of us. When the time came for them to return home, we had a plan in place. They would continue to seek therapy, both individually and as a couple, to process the trauma and rebuild their relationship. I promised to visit more often, maintaining the connection we had rekindled. My parents were determined to support Emily from a distance, hoping she would eventually seek the help she needed. In the months that followed, our lives slowly returned to a new normal. My parents kept me updated on their progress and their attempts to reach out to Emily. She was staying with a friend, and while she remained distant, we hoped she would eventually come around. My parents continued their therapy sessions, finding solace in each other's support. For me, the journey was one of personal growth. I had faced my family's betrayal, navigated through the complexities of forgiveness, and emerged stronger. My career continued to thrive, and I found new hobbies and interests that brought joy and fulfillment. Volunteering at a local shelter became a passion, allowing me to give back to the community and find purpose in helping others. Reflecting on the past year, I realized how far we had come as a family. The pain and betrayal had given way to healing and reconciliation. My parents' acknowledgement of their mistakes and their commitment to change had restored my faith in our relationship. We were not perfect, but we were learning and growing together. The future held promise and hope. I was ready to face any challenges that came our way, knowing we had the strength and resilience to overcome them. Our journey was a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and the unwavering bond of family. We had found our way back to each other, and that was a victory worth celebrating.